Amazing. Thank you so much. I am someone who's going to walk around stage, so you have to follow me, and it's going to waken you up. But what we're going to talk about is how to create trust for your security team by using some practical comms methods. So what I want you guys to have when you return to your office on Monday morning is, one, that you start looking at things from the lens of, am I promoting trust in my security team and all the actions that I do? And two, that you'll have some tools to uplift your communication so that you can actually get people to start trusting you and to make your job easier as security professionals. So, who am I, aside from being a former American cheerleader? Can I get a whoop whoop? All right, we're gonna work on that one later. Aside from being a cheerleader, which means I am a woo girl, I am also a former criminologist, which means that I used to work in evidence-based policing. I would work with our policing units to determine what is it that you do that actually works, and we can quantify that working by using different control and experimental groups and rolling it out across different groups of society. So that's what I used to do, very much a quantitative girl, and always looking at, well, can we bring this back to evidence? From there, we got a bit tired of policing, and I moved into some doctoral research, which then started looking at that cybersecurity space. So what I was really interested in was understanding, how do we recognize email-based threats, and what is it that I can do as a low-cost alternative and solution to get people to acknowledge and recognize those threats online without me really having to do much as a security team. So we tested a whole bunch of nudges. We tried framing nudges, we tried social norm and authoritative nudges, and we found out that they didn't work. And so after years and years of study, we decided that probably the best path was actually going to be working as a security influencer and using behavioral economics and that science behind why we act in certain ways to actually roll out and change behavior in our security departments and across our organization. So what I do now is I currently work in that awareness training and change management space, but really what we look at is, how do we change behavior rather than just getting people to know about security? I want them to work with security. So two things that we're going to achieve today. One, you're going to understand some theory behind compliance, legitimacy, and trust, and then you're going to get some tools that you can take back to your job and make sure that people are actually trusting you as the security team. So let's jump into it. Compliance, legitimacy, and trust. We're going to start with theory. You're going to love it. Just bear with me, guys. But the first thing that we're going to start is kind of a fundamental principle. Now, I used to work in policing, like I said, and so when I come into the security department, I kind of look at the security team as agents of enforcement. So I draw a lot of parallels between security teams and the police force. Now, some of you are furrowing your eyebrows, and I can see that, so bear with me, and then accept the premise and move on for the rest of the presentation. But basically, why am I saying this, that you are agents of enforcement? Well, firstly, you guys act as deterrents for the most part, right? You are constantly monitoring, you're looking at logs, you're constantly seeing how people engage in an organization, which means that when people see you as the team doing that, they're constantly worried that you are going to get mad at them or you are going to punish them, and so you are agents of deterrence across the organization. Whether you like it or not, that is how you are perceived. But furthermore, you're also seen as the enforcers of policies. We have information security policies, we have data policies, we have physical security practices, and you are the people that falls to enforce, right? We don't go, oh, the executive leadership team have done it. We go, oh, the security team have done it. They have found that I've been misusing my laptop. And so you are therefore seen as the people that are tracking this behavior and also leading to the punishment of that behavior. And lastly, if you have more of a good reputation across the organization, you might be seen as the people who investigate and prevent cybercrime, which is kind of that positivistic lens where people then see you again, the same as police officers, that you are doing something to stop crime. You're stopping the bad guys attacking us. You're doing what looks like war games back from the 80s where you're like one step ahead of AI, and then, oh, there's a counterattack, and oh, you're better than them. And that's how people see you. So whether you like it or not, whether you agree or not, that is your perception generally across an organization, is you are the policing unit of your company. So with that premise, why do people comply with you and the policies within an organization? So we have something that's called instrumental compliance. And basically the idea here is that people comply with the policies or laws or standards that you have in place because they are scared that they're going to get in trouble when they're not going to do it. And so instrumental compliance, when we look at it from a policing or societal lens, is this idea that you aren't going to speed because you're worried that you're going to get caught, fined, and lose points on your license. That's instrumental. You only do enough to not get caught, and that is the deterrence that that has in place. But of course, there's limitations with instrumental compliance, right? You only do the bare minimum. You're only doing enough not to get caught, and that isn't really a good use of your resources as a security team, because you're constantly monitoring, you're constantly making sure, you constantly have to be seen as a visible agent of deterrent, and that's not worth your time. So what then did policing units start doing? Back in the 80s and 90s, and that really pushed out in the early 2000s, is they implemented what was called third-party policing methods or efforts. And basically in third-party policing, what they said is, we only have limited resources, we can only do so much, but if we get people on side, those people are gonna start leveraging their resources to make our job easier. So the idea behind third-party policing is basically, if I get another company, organization, community group, or within your organization, different sub-departments on side, I can start making you a place manager. And so if I get you to understand why security is important, and why when an incident happens, that negatively impacts you. Why? Because as soon as an incident happens, your job is in jeopardy. You're going to be stressed having to investigate it. Money is leaving our business, and that is going to impact you down the line. People within the organization start going, damn, that doesn't sound good. That's not security's responsibility. That's my responsibility. And we create this perception of them becoming place managers. And they have an active interest then in making sure that their space is secure, making sure it is safe, making sure that they are leveraging their levers within an organization to then start making sure that people comply. So that's the idea of third-party policing, and that's what takes then this instrumental compliance to normative compliance. I'm not following your standards, policies, and laws because I have to and I'm worried I'm going to get in trouble. I'm following them because I think that they are just, I think that they are fair, and I think that they are going to be a benefit to me down the line, because everyone is going to be benefiting if we all follow these norms, standards, or policies. So that's what we want to be getting to, is that normative compliance within an organization, and that's what that third-party policing principle is based on. So how does this apply to security? How can we see real-world examples of this? So basically, we're going to look at just 4 things really quickly, the difference between normative and instrumental. On the left, we have instrumental. So you're doing enough just to avoid punishment. So in terms of phishing simulations, before someone asked, do we all have them within organizations? Y'all said yes. What does that mean? That means they're not clicking on a link. Why? Because clicking on a phishing link usually leads to more training, right? So they're doing just enough to not get punished. But on that normative side, what you then get is people are actively reporting it because they know that that is going to be better for the organization down the line, because we are not going to have a breach. When we look at it from following data standards, from that instrumental, I'm going to make sure that I share it the correct way. I'm not going to use Dropbox, SharePoint, whatever it is. But you start getting normative compliance, and that's getting people to be place managers of their data, making sure that people aren't accessing it, there isn't some sort of insider risk that data is getting sent elsewhere. You start creating that normative engagement that they start taking ownership. Same with passwords. We have instrumental, fine, I'll use a unique password. I'll change my 1s to 2s, my exclamation marks to question marks. That's a unique password. But when we start going into normative standards, what do we want to do? It's using a password manager, getting everyone to use them, to make sure that they're changing them, to look if they are weak, to make sure they are breached, and making sure that everyone is collectively responsible. And then it's the same with this idea of physical security. Instrumental, oh, you don't have your pass, that sucks, whatever, and you walk away. Whereas from a normative lens, what you're then doing is going, hey, you don't have a pass, you don't look familiar. I'm going to take you up to the security department, they can check your ID, they can sign you in. And you're taking ownership of the space and the place in which you are working, which means that you as the security team don't have to use your resources. You don't have to be monitoring it because someone is doing it for you. Now, I know that sounds great. You're like, wow, Kelsey, I would love to have that in my organization. So how do we get it? Are we ready? Yes, okay, we needed a whoop whoop, guys. That was, woo! Here we go. How do we use these effective communication strategies and tools? 3 really basic elements to any communication that you need to be thinking before you send anything out to an organization, before you even engage in conversations across an organization. What is it? What is the message? Who is the messenger? And what is the medium? We are going to be going through each of these independently. So firstly, let's start with what's the message? What are we trying to say? What are we trying to communicate? So let's break this down a little bit further. Again, in my work as policing, and I know I go back to this quite a lot, but what did we look at getting people to engage and trust the police, to increase reporting rates, to engage compliance, to make sure that people were following the law and not reoffending? Is we basically started scripting all of police's interactions with these 4 principles. We narrowed it down from a lot more, and we found that these were the most effective at getting people to actually see the police as legitimate, at getting them to see that they were fair, and to actually ensuring that they had satisfaction with the police and the job that they were doing, confidence in the police, and ensuring that they were compliant, of course, cooperating. So 4 things: trustworthy motives, the why. We had dignity and respect when we are engaging with people, allowing people to have voice or create a dialogue, and ensuring that we maintained neutrality in all of our interactions. So let's go through all 4 of these and how we can actually include this in a practical example, because I know you all love practical things. So here is the example that we're going to be using. You have just implemented blocking file sharing services. We transfer Google Drive, Dropbox, and someone goes to access one of those pages, and what comes up? Access to the application or website has been blocked. Whoop! I loved it. Unexpected, but there we go. Who has something like this in their organization when you access? All right, let's make that better, okay? So what are we going to start doing? Let's look at trustworthy motives. You guys have probably heard this before. Simon Sinek, start with why. Explain the why. Have some storytelling. And yeah, you actually really do need to do that to make sure that people understand why this is happening to them. So tell people the why, and if you have the time and space, explain the why, right? The why behind it is not just because it's good security. They don't care. That's not relevant to them. The why here is that when we do this, our data is secure. When our data is secure, we are less likely to be in a breach. When we're not in a breach, it means you don't have to work overtime. Doesn't mean you need to fight for your customers' trust. Doesn't mean that we're going to have to make people redundant because we don't have the money back in our coffers to be able to pay you. That's a trustworthy motive. That explains it to them, right? So when we start looking at this example of blocking file sharing services, it's not just access has been blocked, it's access has been blocked because this protects our company's sensitive data. Now, depending on your culture, it might change. We might add in that second one. It's here to protect your data and our company's sensitive data, depending on what kind of culture you have within the organization. Or the third one, maybe you're a bank, maybe you have more regulatory requirements. We then add in that not only does it protect our company's or organization's sensitive data, it ensures that we reach our compliance obligations. That's a trustworthy motive, and all I've done is add a couple of words to this block page. And what we've changed then is people going, wow, security are dicks, they've blocked me from doing my job, to going, security's blocked me and they're still kind of dicks, but I kind of see where they're coming from. And that's a step in the right direction, everyone. So let's move on to the next one. The next one is neutrality. So we've given our trustworthy motive. The next thing is we want to make sure that we're appearing neutral. We wanted to make sure that it appears and everyone knows that this is being applied equally. You're not being singled out. You're not doing it because you're a bad person. It's not happening because you did something wrong previously and now you've lost all of your access. No, neutrality means that this is applied to everyone equally. And when we see that everything is applied equally, we think it's fair. And when we think something's fair, we comply and we want to make sure that we're doing it. So making sure that we have collective responsibility, everyone is being held to the same standard, and we're not apportioning blame. So what does that look like? The access has been blocked to protect our organization's sensitive data. All file sharing services not listed in the data sharing policy has been blocked for all of whatever your organization's employees are. Neutrality. I'm not being singled out. I'm not a bad person. Everyone is being held to this standard. But more than that, what have I done in this one sentence is I've told you where to go for more information. You can now go to that policy and understand exactly what you need to do. So not only do people now not think of security as dicks, they know that you're protecting customer data or sensitive data. They then also know where to go, and they know that they are not being singled out. So the perception of the security team starts to change, and they start actually wanting to cooperate with you. 2 more to go, dignity and respect. respect. The principle behind dignity and respect is making sure that we acknowledge their situation, what they're going through, and how that impacts them, and making sure that we're not condescending. People who work in our organizations, for the most part, are subject matter experts in their job. Some are questionable. I will take you on that one, right? But for the most part, they're subject matter experts, and we need to treat them in that light. But they don't know security. That's your job. But we need to acknowledge that what they're going through is bad for a user experience, blocks their workflow, and we get it. So a bad example of dignity and respect, is let's say that someone emails you and goes, hey, I really need help with this. I hope that the right team to turn to. And you guys respond in an email going, log a ticket. Doesn't that make you feel bad? But also, how many of you have sent that email? Or how many of you have a team member and you've gone through your security inbox and been like, whoa, okay, that is not showing dignity and respect. It's not showing that you understand. So how can we then add that into our communications? All we need to do is add a simple line. We understand that this may impact your workflow. Cool, you understand that this is an imposition to me. And we appreciate you working with us to help maintain our customers' trust in our organization. So what I've done now is I've told you that I understand, I'm treating you with dignity and respect, I'm not being condescending, and I've thrown in another trustworthy motive just for good measure. So now you are starting to see me as not a blocker, you are starting to see me as an enabler. Yeah, and you guys are looking at me like, this is a lot of work. ChatGPT, guys, honestly, chuck in what you want them to do and it spits it out for you. I literally did this to check I was sane, 80% of it was correct, so don't tell me it's a lot of work. We then go on to voice. Now, this last aspect is really, really important. We want to make sure that people feel that this is a dialogue. This is not something that is being simply done to them and they have no say in it. That's not fun. We don't appreciate it. We don't feel valued if you just tell me what to do and I can't say or respond to it anyway. So we need to make sure that we have the ability to have voice and dialogue in these engagements. And to make sure that when we are communicating and we are creating voice, that it's not a no-name, faceless brand, right? Imagine just sending a random email to IT. Who is it? That's like 200 people. But imagine sending it to the specific IT or security department. We start having a brand and a face, and when we have a brand and a face, we are more likely to engage, we're more likely to open up, we're more likely to trust you guys. So what that then looks like is having something like, if you believe that the site or application is being incorrectly blocked, or you'd like to discuss alternative processes or solutions, please contact us via whatever it might be. You have turned a single sentence of something that makes you look like a blocker into something that tells people the why. You have treated them with respect. You've acknowledged that this is an imposition, and you are allowing them to communicate and engage with you that is going to further a conversation and enable them to do their job rather than just tell them no. And a lot of you are looking at me, and I can see your faces. Either you're sinking in, you're thinking about it, or you're like, I don't want to do this, and I don't want to. And that's totally fine. Because you can continue being seen as the blockers in your organization, that's not going to impact me. But the people who are going to start putting this into their communications are going to have a noticeable impact, is going to make their job easier. In the short term, are more people going to reach out to you? 100%. In the long term, are you going to start noticing more vulnerabilities, more things that are going wrong, have things that are more proactive? Yes. And that is what you need to be doing as a security team if you want to be in it for the long haul, not for the short term. So we've crafted our message. ChatGPT does it. Amazing. Trust ChatGPT. Next, we want to be looking at the messenger. Who is sharing the message, right? So this is a really important aspect because who shares it kind of determines how it's being taken in and how someone will respond to it. So I have this cross here, I have this diagram. On the left, we have low trust. Up the top, we have high technological authority. On the right, we have high trust. And on the bottom, we have low technological authority, yeah? The people that we definitely do not want to be communicating any messages about security are the people who have low trust and no technological authority. They're the hard nopes, hard passes on those ones. Those are the people who no one likes in the organization, tell you to just go enter a ticket, but also have no idea how to do security. They stay away from comms, yeah? They go in the back room with their hoodie and they'd never see the light of day, yeah? Who can we start having specific comms coming from? We have this low trust but high technological authority. These are our technological experts. Now, in some instances, these people are fine to communicate with other technological teams. They can communicate to technological standards. They can communicate in a way where we just need something done. And that's fine, that's great if you say have a security person working with an engineer or a dev. That works out perfectly fine. But what you can start doing is you can start getting this technological expert. You can then start getting them to craft their messages using neutrality, trustworthy motives, respect, and voice, and all of a sudden they start moving into that higher trust aspect, and it means that their message is going to be seen and taken on by more parts of the organization. Another group that you should really be leveraging within your organization are these trusted translators. These are the people who do not really know security, but they have so much trust. People like them. People go to them with problems. People want to talk to them. These are the people like your learning and development teams that people like because they're outgoing, former cheerleaders, woo. These are the people who are line managers, so their teams trust them because they know them and they have those engagements. These are the people who are probably your security awareness folks who aren't highly technical, but are really good at getting into the organization. These are the people, even if they cannot completely communicate a technical concept, are going to get people on side and are going to get people doing what you want them to do. And then up here you have your trusted experts. Hopefully, these are the people who are your CISOs. And in some instances, they are not going to be your CISOs because your CISO might also be doing things like go enter a ticket if you want this dealt with. But these are the people that we want for high impact communications. These are the people who are able to explain it, but able to explain it in a way that doesn't make you feel dumb, able to have that respect in there, but also people that have that trust, someone that is known to other people, someone that has built up that relationship that people want to do something for. These are your trusted experts, and eventually you want to be pushing as many people into that. And how do you do it? By using those 4 elements in all of your communication practices to make sure that people are starting to build up trust and making sure that your trusted translators are starting to scale up on security practices. This then takes us to medium. How are we sharing the message? Now, a lot of times we get stuck in this process or phase where we go, cool, I'm just going to send that out as an email. I'm just going to send that out via the intranet, right? But there is so much more to how we share a message than just those different mediums. Firstly, the thing that you want to remember is the rule of 7. Now, this is from marketing. This is talking about sales, but it is still going to apply to you with communications. Why? Because potential customers need to see or hear your marketing message at least 7 times before they take action on the product or service. 7 times they need to hear it. It takes at least 7 times for someone to know and like you and trust you to be able to do what you're asking them to do. Now, some of you are sitting here and you're like, if I tell you to block that shit, you better block it. And that's fine. Sometimes it works, but we can't always have that stick perspective. We need to give them the carrot sometimes. And we need to remember that someone needs to hear it at least 7 times before they then take an action. Repetition is your best friend. Here's the problem. Wait, there's more. The modern rule of 7 now tells us that because people are used to being online, because they have short attention spans, because communication is coming in from every different angle from different people, that we actually need to have 20 to 50 touch points before someone will act in a way that we want them to act or engage with us. 20 to 50 times. Now, some of you are sitting there going, if I tell you to do it once, I want you to do it. And I'm telling you right now that they won't. And at that time that you are annoyed with that message and you are sick of telling people to do something that is secure, that is the one time that they will hear it. So you need to keep saying it lots and lots of times because there's information overload. They have so much information coming to them at every angle. Messages on their email are popping up. Slack messages are popping up. They're getting text messages, phone calls, WhatsApp messages. They're getting things on their Facebook from their family, from their friends. You can't deal with all of that. They're not paying attention. But more than that, there's increased competition. Security is the most important thing in any organization. I know. But you know who else thinks that? Privacy thinks that, marketing thinks that, legal thinks that, finance thinks that. So everyone thinks that they're the most important thing. They're all telling all these people all these messages. There's too much competition, there's too much overload. So what we need to then do is make sure that we're saying it multiple times across multiple channels, 20 to 50 times. And I know you're like, hell no, Kelsy. But that's what you want to do before we start getting people to know, like, and trust us and do what we're asking them to do. So what are the different communication mediums? This is not an exhaustive list, but here are just a few ideas. So at a very minimum,
If you have any kind of communication going out about a change to security or a secure practice, something that you want them to do at work or at home, password security, phishing security, social engineering tactics, block pages, insider risks, whatever it might be, you want to be looking at least one form of long-form communication, right? We want to be looking at some sort of intranet article, some sort of news article, maybe a blog post, maybe a newsletter that gets sent to them via email. You want some sort of short-form content that is going to be a ping, an instant message. You want to be looking at maybe a presentation. So not only do they read it, they see someone that they know, like, and trust, that trusted technical expert, so that they get that message across to them. We could have posters which act as constant nudges, those small-scale nudges, and even though I said it didn't work online in the beginning, I told you framing, normative, and authoritative nudges don't work by themselves. They work when that message comes collectively from someone that they know, like, and trust. So when we think of the mediums, we need to be thinking of multiple mediums every single time we have a message going out that is continually reinforcing it. But you don't have to have the same messenger for each of these mediums. It might make a little bit more sense to have your trusted expert doing that long-form presentation, to talk about the policy changes and what that means for them across the organization, because people know, like, and trust them, because they know that they have the technological expertise. It might be better then to have some sort of brown bag session or face-to-face session with a line manager, where we have more of that trust but less of that technological knowledge, because that's what gets us on side. So when we start thinking about comms, you need to be thinking about how many communication mediums do I need, and how can I get people to say it. Now you're looking at me, you're like, that's a lot of work. One, ChatGPT, it's your best friend. But also, reuse pieces of information. Do not reinvent the wheel. What we have here on the left is that block page that we already wrote. That is the basis of a longer form of communication, right? All you need to do is explain the why in a little bit more detail, link off to the policy, have those different components linked into it. But then what you can also do is start gamifying it. We already had a session on different tabletop exercises. Well, why don't we have, on the example of block pages and why we have, we're no longer allowing transfer services, have that as a method of attack that you then start discussing, and therefore people are starting to understand why that's a thing. Put it into your induction trainings. Start having more phishing simulations that emulate Dropbox, because then people start seeing that as a positive nudge towards why I shouldn't be using it, because it's a phishing simulation and it's a bad thing, right? But use those principles, use those different communication elements, choose your mediums and choose the messenger for each one of them, because when you start doing that, your messages are heard, people will actually listen to them, and it means that you will actually lead to effective change and effective normative compliance. So what have I talked about? I talked about a lot of things, and hopefully you guys took photos of them as we were going through. But the first thing I talked about is being trusted leads to normative compliance. You need to be trusted as a security team if you want people to go above and beyond and not just do the bare minimum. Normative compliance leads people to being place managers, and you want place managers because they take responsibility for their area, for their departments, and for their data. That makes your job easier. We have place managers that then lead to proactive security. So many of us are reactive. We deal with situations once they happened. But if someone can tell us early on, if someone can flag something from their perspective that might be a risk because they're a place manager, and you can get on that early, that saves you time and that saves you money. Now, how do we get to be trusted? We actually make sure that we're improving our comms. We're making sure that in every single one of our engagements, be it face-to-face, be it email responsive, being it those proper communications that we send out, include elements of trustworthy motives, neutrality, respect, and voice. And if you can't include all of them, include one of them, so that we start, you're laughing at me. You don't have to do everything at once, but do one thing and do it well. And again, what do we stop being seen as the blockers? And we start getting seen a little bit more as the enablers every time we add more to them. Choose the right messenger and make sure those messengers are trusted, and work on building up the trust that people have on them, and making sure that we're pushing these messages across multiple channels so that people are seeing it at least 20 to 50 times. If you have any thoughts, if you want to fight me on this, if you want to debate me on this, if you just want to send me a whoop whoop, that is my email address. My name is Kelsy Luengen. You can add me on LinkedIn. You can chat to me on LinkedIn. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you have practical tips, and I hope that you approach your organization and your engagements with that lens of, is this building trust in me, and is it building trust in my team? Thank you so much.
Yeah, come on, a bit more of a whoop whoop. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Oh, and she nailed the time as well. Look at that.
Boom.